Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well and having a great start to the week so far. It's Monday. We're going to do a Rashi from the second Aliyah. Actually, a couple of short Rashis from this interesting Aliyah. We get into Shmos, a whole different set of questions, a whole different set of stories, whole different flavor to the Sefer. Of course, in the second Aliyah, we have the Gzeros of Paro. Paro sees the Jewish people. This is a new Paro, Asher Lo Yadas Yosef, Yakam Melech Chadash, whatever that means. And he sees Hava Nischak Malo. The people are going to outsmart us. They're going to do battle with us. Alamin Haaretz. They're either going to get rid of us or they're going to leave, one or the other. And therefore, he starts to put restrictions on them. He starts to put slavery on them. All of these edicts of Paro start to come out over here. So the first main edict, which is not about inflicting slavery, but about stopping the numbers from growing, is the edict to the Miyalados, to the midwives, Shifra and Pua, who we believe are Miriam and Yocheved. Vayomer Yaled Chenesa Ivrios Rusenas Al Havnaim in Benhu Vamiseno Oso Vim Basi Vachaya. When you see the children being born, right on the birthing stone, if it's a boy, you're supposed to kill him. If it's a girl, you can let her live. Rashi explains why the differentiation between the sexes over here. Lo haya makpid el al azcharim. He was only worried about killing off the males. She'amru lo yitztagninav. His astrologers told him she'asidos leiled ben hamoshiosam. He wasn't only worried about the numbers, which of course, if you kill, either the males or the females, the numbers issue will resolve itself. But at least in the short term, he wasn't only concerned about the numbers, he was also concerned because his astrologers had predicted that the one who was going to come and save the Jewish people and take them out of slavery was going to lose all of his manpower, he was going to lose all of his economic abilities, he was going to lose all of what the Jewish people being in Egypt and being so numerous offered him. Therefore, he wanted to kill off the one who would save them. They would remain enslaved to him. He would be in power over them. So long as they weren't equals, he could subdue any rebellions and all would be well. He would continue to have his benefits of having this population in his midst. So that's why he wanted to kill off the boys. And his command was to the Miyalados, to the midwives. He thought that would work. Unfortunately, it didn't for him. Fortunately for us, they were more fearful of God than they were of Paro, and therefore they did not kill the babies as they came out. In the second Aliyah, today's Aliyah, Paro starts to realize what's going on. He calls in the Miyaldos. They come up with their excuse. They say that Jewish women give birth so fast that we can't get there fast enough, etc. And because of this, Hashem rewarded them. Hashem was very pleased with their actions in every way. But Paro, of course, was not pleased with their actions. And so he has to take a different tact, because telling them to kill the boys is not necessarily going to work. And therefore he says, Vayitzav Paro l'chol amo lemor. Paro commands his entire nation, saying, Kol haben hayalod hayaora tashlichu v'chol abas techayun. He maintains the idea of killing the boys and not the girls, but he expands this gzeira. He expands this edict, l'chol amo. He makes this announcement to the whole nation, and he doesn't leave it up to the Miyaldos. Rather, he tells the entire population that they are now responsible. Not only are they responsible, and not only do they have to kill the males who are born, but they have to do so in a very public fashion by throwing them into the Or. So it's not like you can cover it up and say, oh, I wasn't there, I didn't see the birth, because his command was to kill them al ha'ovnayim when they come out. Oh, I wasn't there, I didn't make it, they were so fast, or it happened hidden in the house. No one can hide anymore, because the edict is you have to throw them in the Nile. So it's a very public display. And it's l'chol amo, which Rashi says here, l'chol amo is afalehem gazar. It wasn't just the announcement that Paro made to everybody that the Jewish families would have to throw their boys into the Nile. Rather, it was an edict on his nation as well. And that shows the depth of the depravity of Paro, the depth of the cruelty of Paro, the likes of which, we only see, Baruch Hashem, in isolated cases in history of people who were so committed to torturing the Jews that they were willing to kill off their own population. Something we see, unfortunately, in the Holocaust. I'm sure it occurred in other eras between Paro and Hitler. But people who are so cruel, so crazed by the need to get rid of the Jews, that they inflict unbelievable suffering upon their own people. And that's what Paro was willing to do here. He was willing to kill off the males of his own population for the sake of making sure that none of the Jewish males continue to survive and that the Moshiach Shel Yisrael would never be born. I want to read a little bit more of this Rashi because I think it's very interesting. He says, when was this day? When was this edict? L'chol amo was Yom Shenolad Moshe, Amru lo istagnina. On the day Moshe Rabbeinu was born, his astrologers said, Hayom Nolad, today he was born. They didn't know who he was, right? They knew someone who was going to save the Jewish people was born. And they knew he was born today. And therefore, they advised Paro to make this edict about throwing the babies in the water today. Why into the water? Why was that so important? Why was that the choice? Not only because, as I said before, it's a very public display. Not only perhaps, as you might assume, that the Nile is a god, and so the god of Egypt is conquering the babies of the Jewish people, etc. It's like a war of the gods type of thing. But in addition to that, they said to Paro, the astrologers, Ein anu yodim im mitzris im Israelis. He makes this edict now, on that day, to his population and the Jewish population, because his astrologers claim that we don't know actually who the Moshiach Shel Yisrael, the one who's going to save the Jewish people, is going to be. Is it going to be from our own population, from the Egyptians, or is it going to be from the Jews? But the one thing we don't know is he was born today, and the one thing we know is he's going to eventually be destroyed because of water. Therefore, Paro made an edict on that very day on the Egyptians as well, right? There could have been an Egyptian rebel, a defector, a traitor of some sort, who would have come over to the side of the Jewish people and decided to save them. So he wasn't sure, would it be that, or would it be a Jewish person who was able to rise to such prominence and power? They would come to save the Jewish people and overthrow the Egyptian empires. Because he didn't know, the edict was on everybody. And because his astrologers clued him in as to water as being a significant feature of the downfall of this Moshiach Shel Yisrael, the edict was specifically to throw them into the Nile. Shenemar, kol haben hayelod, etc. Yor tashlichu v'lo ne'amar hayelod la'ivrim. It says, Vayitzapar l'chol amo, and then it says kol haben hayelod, any boy born. It doesn't say kol haben hayelod la'ivrim. So we assume that it wasn't just the announcement l'chol amo, but the gezerah was to his children as well. What they didn't know, says Rashi, hen lo hayu yodin shesofa lilkos amei meriva. They got one thing wrong in the prediction. They realized correctly there would be a Moshiach Shel Yisrael, someone who would save the Jewish people. They realized correctly that he was born that day. They realized correctly that his downfall would be through water, but they got it a little wrong. It's not that his downfall was going to be through the waters of Egypt physically killing him, but his downfall was going to be eventually with the hitting of the rock to get water for the Jewish people at Mei Meriva, which would prevent him from going into the land of Israel. I think we're probably many of us familiar with this Rashi. It's not a new Rashi. It's an important Rashi. Even old Rashis are important to go over. You sometimes see new nuances, new details, or just good to review. But what I find fascinating about this Rashi, beyond the words that he says, is just being alerted to the fact that the whole frame of Moshe's life is through water. The beginnings of Moshe's life and him being saved physically come through the Nile. The end of his life, the last stories in the Torah, are his death prior to entry in Israel, his va'es chanan, his pleading to God to be allowed in, and God saying no because of the incident of the water. Water frames his life. He begins with the gezerah of Paro of water trying to kill him, and he ends up being physically saved by water. And he ends his life with the edict, not of Paro, but the Melech Malchei Amlachim, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's edict about water to him, not saving him physically, but destroying him spiritually. It's a fascinating frame to his life, thinking about both the similarities and the differences between the water at the beginning and the water at the end, but water really being the frame of the entirety of his experience. And then, of course, some instances in the middle, such as the successful retrieval of the water, such as the second command to hit the rock, to speak to the rock, all of these differences between incident 1, incident 2, the beginning of the 40 years, the end of the 40 years. We have the sweetening of the waters in Mara. There's so many, Kriyas Yamsov, thank you, so many incidents of water in the middle, but certainly the beginning and the end is quite significant. And this Rashi clues me in to that framework, just as we begin the stories of Moshe, to try to think about that as we go forward. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. You too, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. We'll see you when you get back.
Yeah.